Hi, everyone. I'm so excited you've joined this webinar. Today, we're going to dive into a little bit about the Accolade and Limeade partnership and why we think we have a unique approach. We're then going to talk about the high stakes of your health and well-being programs and what we think is the missing link, a personalized experience for employees. We're going to make sure you know how to deliver that with 5 ways. We'll talk about the benefits, and then we'll wrap up with a Q&A. And I'll answer everyone's top question. We will be sending the slides and the recording by the end of the week, so don't need to take serious notes. So we have 2 speakers here today. I'd first like to introduce Umair Khan. He's the Vice President of Product Management at Accolade. He's leading the development of new technology tools to help families quickly and easily manage their health and tap into healthcare benefits and services. We also have Lee Rossini here. He's the Vice President of Product and Marketing at Limeade, and he guides all product and go-to-market innovation for us to drive more engaged employees and better business results. I'll kick it off to Umair to start the webinar.
Thanks for everyone for joining today. What we're discussing today is the partnership between Accolade and Limeade and some broader takeaways that we can have related to how we personalize the benefits experience. Accolade and Limeade have come together in order to solve an urgent need together, which is that we're focused on creating an entirely different health and benefits experience, both for employees and for employers. And through this, we're proving that a truly integrated and personalized approach to health and well-being can make a tremendous impact in multiple areas on benefits usage and, most importantly, on decision-making and how satisfied employees are with their healthcare decisions and the benefits that they're using. And we think this is a really unique and differentiated approach, and today we're here to share this perspective with you.
Hey, everybody. This is Lee from Limeade. We are if you don't know us, we're a corporate wellness technology company, and our mission is to make sure we improve the well-being of employees and get them more engaged at work. And like Umair said, thanks so much for joining us. We're really excited about the partnership with Accolade because together we're really focusing on accelerating employee well-being. And here you'll see a slide that basically just shows how we're doing that. We make it very, very easy for the employee to jump in to each other's experiences, whether it be on the Limeade side or the Accolade side, with a single sign-on. And here you'll see this screen within the Limeade platform itself. The employee has access to Accolade resources right on the front of their homepage. In this case, it says, there's a tile there that says install the Accolade mobile app. But depending on what help the employee needs, it could be a tile suggesting, hey, here's how you connect to an Accolade Health Assistant. Now, what's the experience on the other side where the user is interacting with Accolade? Well, there the employee can get support in understanding their benefits directly from their own personal health assistant, a real human being that actually sees the Limeade information for that employee, their activity, their well-being assessment information, and can really then guide them towards the whole person well-being needs that are most beneficial to them, as well as the resources that Accolade and Limeade can provide to help them get there. Now, let me start with something a little bit dramatic, but I believe in this, which is I think we're in the middle of a health crisis, and I think there's never been a better time for us to join forces between Limeade and Accolade, considering what lies in front of us. This is an epidemic when it comes to well-being and engagement. So what's happening around us? Let's look at the toll it's taking on people's lives, not to mention the impact that it has on the business and the economy. So I don't know about you, but I look around, I see anxiety at an all-time high. I see nutrition being poor. I see people finding many different ways to self-medicate. I've been there myself with ice cream. But obesity is on the rise. Half of U.S. adults are obese, and that number's gone up every single year. That percentage of obese Americans has gone up every single year since 2001. You'll see stats here about drinking costs and how that impacts productivity, as well as absenteeism is on the rise. And the stat I want to draw your eyes to that's most concerning to me is the one in the lower left, which is 63% of it, nearly two-thirds of employees, 63% of employees feel their company simply doesn't care about their well-being. That's a staggering set of issues that we're dealing with.
And unfortunately, despite all of the investments that employers in particular have made in health and in wellness programs, the needs are high stakes, but the solutions today simply aren't working. When we look at the results, employee engagement with healthcare and wellness isn't going up. Half of employees don't understand the benefits that are available to them. The benefits might be getting richer, they might be becoming more tailored and nuanced, but there's still a gap. You have about a third lacking knowledge of what options are available to them in terms of what care decisions that they need to make. And if you combine that with the anxiety that Lee mentioned, especially when you're in the middle of a healthcare decision, it's really hard to make a really good healthcare decision. As a result, about half of employer health solutions are simply just going unused, and so those are investments that we've all made, but we're not getting the right return from those investments. And even the incentives to use these resources aren't working, because the problem isn't the employee and they're not listening, but it's more so the system and how they're accessing the resources available to them.
So I do want to share some good news. There's some light at the end of the tunnel, and that is when health and wellness programs are done right, they not only improve the health of your employees, but also of your business. That's because healthy employees we tend to see are more engaged and they're more productive, which then drives the business results that you're looking for, like revenue and profitability and other KPIs. So let's kind of flip it on its head, though. Remember that really sobering fact that I said where nearly 2/3 of employees believe their company doesn't care about their well-being? Well, what happens when employees do feel like their company cares about their well-being? Where our research, it shows us that they're 38% more likely to be engaged in their work, and that's actually super, super encouraging. So what's in our way? We're asking ourselves this on the Limeade side. Accolade's asking themselves. We're asking this question together. What's in our way? And here's what we see. First, it's really three things. First, health and well-being solutions tend to be disconnected, a one-size-fits-all experience. And the days where that one-size-fits-all approach are realistically, they're in the rearview mirror for us. Second, everybody is different. Everybody has their own health journey and unique challenges along the way. And third, employees really, frankly, expect a better experience. With the pressures of life and time, we need to make it very simple and very effective. So what's the missing link? We believe it's an integrated and personalized experience that eliminates all that noise. It helps them get to the help that they need. That means meeting participants where they are now and then adapting to wherever they are and what specifically they need at whatever moment in time they are in their journey, whether it's 2 months from today, 2 years from now, 6 months down the road, whatever.
So if you think about this notion of personalization, which is what we're getting into today, it helps to think about what the experience is like when something isn't personalized and what the experience feels like when something is personalized. When something isn't personalized, as Lee was mentioning, it feels like a one-size-fits-all experience. And when someone engages with that, they don't feel like they have choice. Things are hard to understand. The system that they're interacting with the employee doesn't feel like it knows me, right? The capacity to learn of the system just isn't there. It can be hard to access, right? Password issues and all of that sort of stuff. And it doesn't get better the more I use the actual system or the application. So that's what life is like before personalization. If you think kind of more with the glass half full, after personalization, it's a dramatically different experience. The information that an employee needs is available at the right time, at the right place, through the right technology channel. Might be online, might be over the phone. Whatever information comes through is really relevant and clear. The system or the service is adapting to the needs of the person. It's really flexible. It's allowing someone to feel like their entire whole person is being engaged, right, and not just their condition. The system itself is learning, and so it feels like it's smarter every time I engage with it. It's getting to know me better. And it's really simple to use, and it's integrated with my entire HR experience, my benefits experience within my employer. So post-personalization is a really different experience, and that's something that we seek to drive in the partnership with Limeade.
So if it's not obvious already, we're looking with Accolade to change the conversation and make sure we help our employees and organizations really, truly improve well-being and engagement. And there's some good news. The good news is we're all in a position, those of us on the Accolade and Limeade side and everybody on this call, we're in a position to actually do something about it. So we'd like to next share our blueprint on what a personalized employee health and well-being experience looks like through 5 key approaches. So let's start with number 1. Everything starts with trust. I don't know about you, but I've been in environments where trust was lacking, and if you were in one of those environments, just think back to all the host of problems that come up when employees don't feel like or they don't trust the company, and those behaviors tend to run rampant, and it's a problem. And we know on the Limeade side, when it comes to just using technology, employees aren't going to register, they're not going to log on, they're not going to participate if they're feeling like their company doesn't really have their best interests in mind. So let's get really practical. What does that look like? Well, if your company is one that's focused entirely on cutting healthcare costs, for example, I found employees see right through that. It feels like a program that the company is doing to their employees, and that can be a turnoff. Instead, it's just, we have an opportunity to create a program with you and with Accolade that's one that the company is doing for the employee, that has their true, genuine interest in their well-being. And so there's a really, really easy way to build trust. I'll give you two ways. One, let's make sure that the programs that we're providing is for the employee's benefit. It's a privilege. It's designed to help them meet individual goals, overcome unique challenges wherever they are at the time. If you're providing, let's say, Accolade's healthcare concierge service, that's a really meaningful benefit, which is in line with caring for the employee. How is that communicated to your population? How easy do you make it for them to access that? Those are all key questions that we have to answer. And if you do those things right, trust is going to build. Another way, the second way to build trust, is really, and we do this on the Limeade side as well, is really thinking through how we design a program so it feels authentic to the employee. It's curated for them, it knows them, and it's attainable. Some of the programs that we see get put into place are very punitive, and others are so aspirational that they don't feel attainable. Everybody's level of what they can attain is different, and we have to curate accordingly if we hope to have the best impact with each individual person.
In addition to trust, the second element that we think is important to highlight is supporting the whole person, right? Offering whole person support. So we've all been there. We've looked at the trend of our healthcare spending. We've dug into it in a little bit more detail, and we say things like we need to focus on our diabetics or ER utilization or whatever it might be. And that's a very rational way to think. The distinction, though, when actually offering a product and a service that's personalized is that experience to the employee can't feel like I'm being treated as an employee just like a condition, right? I'm more than a diabetic. And so the product and the service needs to take into account the complete person or the whole person. And so things like the person's emotional state, the way they access care, their financial situation and their relationship with money, the extent to which cultural and spiritual issues may play a role into their healthcare journey. Those are things that matter, because at the end of the day, if I'm a diabetic or if I have CHF or any of these types of conditions, if I can't find affordable transportation, if I'm too anxious about getting the right type of care, unless I get through those other issues that are a part of me, that are present in my life, I'm never going to be able to get the right care that we need. And so treating the whole person really helps to get to the issue via the avenue of other life factors.
Okay, so number 3. Before we get to number 3, though, I want to dive into technology. I'm a technology guy, and I love personalization, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say that technology alone isn't going to drive employee well-being and engagement. That's why building trust and whole person support rank number 1 and number 2 on our list. Now, all that being said, I get excited when we talk about the technology, and that's what you see in number 3, which is flexibility and choice. So we need to be very thoughtful and understand the whole person and make sure that we understand what matters most to them. And when somebody starts their Limeade journey, we have them jump into the platform and complete what we call our vision page, which you see here on the screen. And that's where we have them select a personal goal, which then it's the first step in their journey and sets them on a path to improve the areas they care about the most. Now, I like this, and we find that our customers like this approach because it really evokes what we call intrinsic motivation, which is behavior that is driven by internal reinforcement. It's not arbitrary. It's not based on external rewards. It's something that's motivating and something that we find people want to pursue on their own. Now, on the screen, you'll see someone that's interested in improving their nutrition. Now, I personally, when I joined Limeade, I wanted to manage stress and resilience, but you can imagine there are a whole host of different opportunities across the whole person well-being dimensions that people can choose from and tailor it accordingly. So they get presented with activities that help them and help them find the sweet spot of either stress and resilience or physical activity or financial well-being or work well-being. So this is just one example of personalization, but it's important to start the journey on the right step.
In addition to flexibility and choice, we think it's also really important to meet people where they are. And there's a few different ways to think about how do you meet someone where they are. The first is that recognizing health and well-being, it's a 24/7 experience. And so people live and they learn and they work and they play and they pray. And all of that, or most of it, exists outside the formal walls of the healthcare system. And so being available over the phone, being available online, being available via an app, that allows us to offer products and services that relate to where people live and where they work and so on and so forth. In addition to that, if we're meeting people where they are, we can't simply just focus on the sickest, call it 5% of the population, or just focus on those that are consuming the most amount of care. Proactively engaging everyone, including those that are healthy, allows us to ensure that everyone is on the right track to health and well-being. And so you're meeting me where I am, even if I'm not, technically a high-cost claimant, because you're helping me with the support that I need to make sure I get the right care. And then lastly, and this ties back to treating the whole person, we need to meet people where they are with solutions that fit their lives. And so if I live my life in a particular way, or if I'm dealing with a particular set of issues, ideally the product or the services that I'm engaging with for my health and well-being are recognizing that. In addition, and then lastly, a fifth point is that we need a complete data profile. Data is important. We're increasingly getting more and more data about individuals, employees, and their family members. And so building a complete and full 360-degree profile of a person is a very helpful way to drive personalization. And what this means is that we have certain data points that are a starting point, but we can't simply stop at the starting point. So claims data is a great starting point, and that's something that we're all deeply familiar with. It's been used in the health and benefits industry for quite some time. But that's not enough. We need to use biometric data. We need to use utilization management feeds that come in. We need to understand the benefits that are available to someone and make it accessible in a really data-rich manner. Risk scoring, being able to conduct custom assessments, such as the ones that are offered by Limeade, really help to build a complete data profile of who someone is. Once we've done this is a tremendously rich asset, and this is what can be used to target different populations. And so population targeting is important, right? Focusing on diabetics, focusing on individuals with heart issues, and so on and so forth. We're not saying that we shouldn't do that, but when we go out and when we reach those people in a targeted manner, we'll do so with a lot more data at our fingertips, and so we can view them as a complete and whole person, like we had talked about earlier. And then when we're having interactions with someone, it's important that we continue to learn and find a way to take information. This is something that Accolade has historically done, that we learn on the fly that may not be coming through a claims data feed or a biometric data feed or a formal data feed, but it's something that an employee or a member is telling us with their words. Those are things that we need to capture and further plug that into a broader data profile. And ultimately what happens is that if you have all of this rich data available, the question becomes, how do I continue to make more and more use of this investment? And that's where machine learning and artificial intelligence come in which that data is studied, patterns are identified, it's bumped up against the broader population, and the system overall is getting smarter about what's the right way to support the individual person that I'm supporting today.
Okay, so we've got the blueprint here. Recap. 1 through 5, trust, whole person support. I want to take just a moment on whole person support to make sure that we're clear on what that means in our taxonomy. So we think of whole person support across 4 dimensions. So the one that most people have in their mind is physical well-being. We couple that with emotional, and then we add two more, which is financial well-being and then work well-being. So do we have purpose in our work? The next three around flexibility, choice, meeting people where they are, and complete data profile, we can go into more depth on each of these. The one thing I did want to mention on the complete data profile is when we start with our users on the Limeade side, we ask a number of questions in what we call a well-being assessment that helps us really pinpoint where people are at that moment in time across those four dimensions of well-being that I mentioned, which are physical, emotional, financial, and work. So, have we sold you yet? Well, let's go a little bit further, and let's make sure that we talk about how a personalized experience brings benefits not only to the employee, but also to the organization as a whole. So we are really, really focused with Accolade to make sure we get that integrated personalized experience because it helps us achieve a bunch of different things. One, it helps us get greater individualized feedback to the employee, commands greater attention from them. It's processed way more intensively. It contains less redundant and useless information for that customer. And then finally, we know that it's perceived more positively by health consumers. And personalization, it also drives better HR program adoption, which in turn generates the results I think we all want to get. So let me give you a quick example to drive this point home. We're looking at smoking cessation and how do we help people quit. And so we looked at two like populations, both very, very interested in quitting smoking. We gave one group self-help manuals that taught them how to fish, and the other we gave them a very personalized approach on methods how to quit. And what do you expect would happen? Well, the personalized approach really outperformed the standardized one. And we've seen that in other areas of our business as well. We just know that personalized care is critical to getting people the right care at the right time. And it ultimately generates anywhere between 2 to 10 times the usage of health and well-being solutions. So we know we can help individuals make better decisions for their health and well-being. And we're really focused on integrating and using personalization to change behaviors and habits over time.
So we're excited about how Accolade and Limeade are coming together to create a completely new approach to health and well-being programs, one that's fully integrated and centered around really the unique and personal needs of each individual and not one that feels like it's a disconnected process living in the healthcare system. The result of this, we think, is a personalized health and benefits and complete well-being experience that's needed to truly help people. And it's powered by a deep synchronization between technology and on-demand healthcare and healthcare concierge services. And when those two things come together, that will intelligently guide the employee to the right type of content and the right type of activities that they need across both the Limeade and the Accolade platforms. So as health and benefits leaders, we're responsible for driving the right sort of solutions within our organizations and, when needed, to drive change within our organizations. Ultimately, to make the type of impact that we've outlined here, we have to be able to do things a little bit differently. Number one, we have to recognize that traditional approaches, they just simply aren't working, even though they're very, very well-intentioned, but they come across as disconnected and hard to use and one-size-fits-all. And then from there, we need to move forward and think about what are ways to put the individual that we're supporting at the center of care and to make all of the processes, the systems, and the solutions work for each person, tailoring to their unique circumstances. And when that happens, we'll meet people where they are. We'll have a whole person approach. It'll feel trusting. We'll be able to influence them and ultimately influence them to make better decisions that benefit themselves and also our entire organizations.
All right. Thank you, Umair and Lee. That was really great. Now we're going to dive into questions. So I've seen a couple come through, but feel free to keep writing them in. And Umair, I'm going to kick it off with the first question for you. You talked a lot about machine learning and artificial intelligence, and I know this is a hot topic right now in the industry. How can you explain a little bit more about how these play a role in personalization?
Sure. So if you think about machine learning and artificial intelligence, the gist of this is that we're trying to capture as much data as we possibly can that oftentimes has existed in disparate silos. And we're trying to put that together in one place. And by doing so, we're using that to form associations with the data that effectively build not only profiles or segments, but you could think about it as building really micro profiles or micro segments, so things that are very, very, very targeted. And with that high degree of targeting, it becomes much easier to make recommendations that might be really relevant for someone. So rather than just saying that you're diabetic, hey, you should think about these 6 programs. Instead, this approach can say, let me take a lot of information that I have about you, and I can bump it up against thousands and thousands and thousands of other diabetics, and through that I can recognize, well, because you're diabetic with these other additional profile attributes, this is a program that might be really right for you. And that recommendation can be offered up in a really personalized manner. And so ultimately, machine learning and artificial intelligence works well when it's offered within an organization or a set of organizations that really believe in that notion of personalization. And if you think about Accolade and Limeade, that's something that we believe very strongly in. And so not only do we live it with the data experience, but we further carry it out in the actual product and the service that's offered. So fundamentally, it's about more tailored and targeted recommendations that help people along their care journey.
Thank you. That was super helpful. Lee, I have one question for you. When you say that you have to build trust, what does that really mean when you're creating a wellness program?
So, it starts with creating a program that's really built on trust and user choice. And to me, it has to begin by viewing the employee as a client. And that's tricky because if you've been in a lot of client relationships, they're not shy in telling you what they need. In this case, our clients, the employees, don't always give us what they exactly need, and we have to really figure out what they do need across the entire spectrum of well-being, whether it's physical, emotional, financial, or work well-being. And the most meaningful programs that we see are built on that understanding and give employees what each really need. And from there, we end up putting activities and habits in place that can grow over time and adapt, because what's important today for that employee once they solve, there's probably 5 other things that they're chomping at the bit to get after. I also want to spend a second talking about the converse of that, because I think these programs are out there. And what does a program look like that doesn't build trust? I think punitive programs, these programs are kind of the poster child for what doesn't build trust. They're focused on things like increasing or minimizing health care costs and providing fines to people and employees. They end up doing those programs because they have to do them, not because they want to. And it's usually just to meet an incentive. And in those cases, employees don't trust the program as something the organization wants to truly support them. They approach it as something that they have to jump through hoops for. And it's not an intrinsic motivating type of program. Programs that we find that build trust and foster that employee intrinsic motivation are ones that offer resources that allow employees to guide their own well-being journey with resources and help. And these programs tend to be participated in at a much higher rate and have better long-term outcomes because we're helping employees build long-lasting habits that matter to them.
Great. And Lee, I have one more for you on financial well-being from the audience. Most employers are not really thinking about this quite yet. So what does that actually mean from a wellness perspective?
Well, it's interesting because I saw a stat that I think it was nearly half of Americans today, if they had a car repair bill of over $1,000, they wouldn't know how to pay for it. And that just tells me we've got a big problem. And so when we think about financial well-being, we think about everything from budgeting all the way up to 401k and retirement planning. And that, we actually get to the bottom of that through starting with our well-being assessment. We ask a series of financial questions, and then what we like to do is put together content that actually helps people through budgeting. Budgeting 101, 201, 301, or here's how to manage your 401k, et cetera. And then, of course, we actually integrate with partners to make sure that they get other financial information that they need, whether it be through Fidelity or others.
All right, Umair, I have a tough one for you from Jeffrey. He says, we've heard all this before and still not sure how our combined program would achieve all of this. So can you talk a little bit about how Limeade and Accolade have come together to really show those results and that what we're doing a little bit differently?
Yeah. So if you think about the combined experience, you're really trying to leverage, what we're trying to do is trying to leverage the strength of both organizations. The historic roots of Accolade and the historic roots of Limeade, I'll describe those briefly and then talk about how they come together. I'll start with Accolade. The historic roots of Accolade have been a deeply personalized concierge service experience that also is supported by rich technology. But it's this idea that I have my own health assistant who really knows me and who really knows my family and everything about me. The historic roots of Limeade have always been this complete and holistic health and well-being experience, as Lee eloquently described in the conversation up until this point. And that's been offered through tools such as a health and well-being assessment, which then creates an onboarding to a complete experience online that allows someone to engage in various aspects of their health and well-being through Limeade and also through other programs and partners. And so when you bring the two of those experiences together, there's a deep concierge experience in which I still have my health assistant who really knows me, and then my online experience is also really full and complete in terms of the health and well-being options that are available to me, and there's an opportunity for data sharing back and forth. And so the health and well-being assessment that I fill out as an example can be information that my Accolade health assistant can use to think about what the best ways to support me. And so it's taking the historic roots of both organizations, which have produced tremendous results, and saying, let's make it even, let's bring it together to create an even more personalized experience that's fully available across any channel, across any experience, i.e. that 24/7 personalized experience that we were highlighting earlier.
Great. Thank you, Mary. I have one more question for you. There was a few concerns about privacy and if this is confidential. So could you explain a little bit more about where all this personal data comes from when we're building a profile of an employee?
Sure. So privacy is tremendously important, and security over the data, I would add, that wasn't explicitly called out in the question, but that's also tremendously important. And so before any of this data is gathered, it's done so in a manner that's fully, from a legal perspective, fully recognizing that the data carries rights and it can only be viewed by certain people, and it can't be shared broadly. And so even if engineers or developers are working with the data, there's strict privacy controls in terms of how they access it. And so really the intent of putting the data together is that it comes together in a way in which it's only accessed when it's needed. And so if we use the example of an Accolade health assistant, a health assistant doesn't simply just go browsing data of lots of different members for no reason. It's more so that when there's an engagement opportunity, I have information that's available to me that can really help me understand who it is that I'm actually dealing with. And because the data is coming from disparate sources, some might be coming from the carrier in terms of claims data, some might be coming from a partner, for example, that might be providing diabetes support. It's ensuring that those agreements are set up in a way that says the data is coming in, here are the rights of use that are associated with it, and it's simply and only used for that purpose. That's one. Two, there has to be regular and ongoing audits to ensure that those agreements and those intentions are actually being lived up to. And both our organizations, Accolade and Limeade, treat that with the highest degree of respect and confidentiality. And so whenever we engage in those types of security audits, it's experiences that tend to go well because we've organized and treated the data in the right type of manner, respecting people's privacy and their security.
Thank you. And I have a last question for Lee, a good one from Jen. How do employees know when to use which app? When are they promoted? When are they marketed? Why would I go to Accolade versus Limeade?
Oh, that's a great question. We've been asked that before, too, which is, hey, what's the hub? Accolade, Limeade, where do people go? And I think the answer is both and neither, which feels like a cop-out, but let me explain. So we feel like the best user experiences get people exactly what they need when they need it in whatever modality works best for them for that specific context. So sometimes people are just looking to do things themselves, and other times they need a guided experience. So let's think about Accolade as a hub. In this situation, you think of somebody in the healthcare system looking for health help and have a mindset around, like, I've got to find a great doctor or get a second opinion for a really serious issue, or, hey, can you help me find cheaper generic drugs, or there's a chronic condition that I'm dealing with, or, boy, my teenager needs an orthodontist. We believe the front door for that type of discussion would be Accolade. And they have very highly trained health assistants, which they're aided by modern apps and tools, and it's perfect for that situation. It's a true concierge service that gets you the highest value and the most convenient solutions. Now, let's talk about when Limeade would be a hub. Let's say you're at work and you're dealing with all the daily life issues that are coming up, like you've got to learn new skills, deal with stress, figure out how to best collaborate or compete with your friends, share ideas, help customers find new solutions. You got to find new ways to find sleep because you're not sleeping well, you're in debt, you got to learn how to be a great manager. Then we view Limeade as a front door. It's a whole person, year-long approach that we believe helps you get to be your best at work and life. Now, I said neither because the hub example, it works all right, but it assumes there's some external center to someone's life experience, and that people are really shopping for benefits and programs, and that's not really how life works most of the time. We sometimes find people, they really know what they're looking for, and most times they have bigger priorities like working, living, surviving, being with their friends. And our systems, it's imperative that our systems need to know those things. We can't try to have the user self-select their way in. Here we need super smart systems that find the openings in the day, in the workflow of their life to nudge people along. And in those critical moments, when you need some help, you need a hotline at your fingertips, we just want to be bring a little bit more well-being into your life. You need a supportive organization. That's where we feel like our systems will adapt and evolve. And that's why I would argue neither are, in that case, a hub.
Thank you, Lee. So thank you so much for all of your thoughtful questions. I tried to respond to as many privately as possible, but if we have not answered your questions, you can email any of the email addresses below, and we're happy to connect you to one of our subject matter experts to get you more information. And we're also happy to talk about our partnership and how we might work with you. Just to wrap it up, we'll be sending a recording of this webinar as well as the slides with all of the citations for the stats as well. So look for that in your inbox by the end of the week. And I hope you learned a little bit more about how to think about your employees in a personalized way and achieve greater results with your well-being and health programs. Thank you, everyone.